All right, my name is Martin Madert with the Witness to War Foundation. It is September 14th, 2025, and we're in San Diego, California for the United States Marine Corps Vietnam Tankers Association reunion. I'm sitting with Mr. Bob Tomlinson, Tomlinson, who served in the Vietnam War with the United States Marine Corps with 3rd Tanks Bravo Company.
Third tanks.
3rd Tanks, yes, sir. How you doing this morning, Bob?
How?
You doing good this morning?
Yeah, still breathing. I'm 80 years old, 5 months, 1 week, and a couple of days. Oh, it's 2 weeks now. 5 months, 80 years old, 5 months, 2 weeks old. And I have an exercise program. Planet Fitness keeps me alive because I have diabetes from Agent Orange, Agent Blue, that we ran patrols out of Dong Hao Combat Base almost every day. It was sprayed by Air America, and we were never told stay out of these wet areas. So we went through the brush before it all died and got wet. So I have diabetes from that. And
Wow. Well, we're going to come back to all that in a minute, but I want to start off by asking, where are you from originally? Where were you born?
well, I was born in Ottumwa, Iowa, the day the Marines on Okinawa, World War II, and that was April 1st, 1945. I just tell people that's the last day I could get away with kicking my mother. So anyway, my father was a Navy flight instructor in World War II. My birth mother was enlisted as a Blink trainer operator in the Navy, even though she was a college graduate, so was my father. And he was still active duty Navy. We go to Texas, between Dallas and Fort Worth. He gets out of the Navy. We're back to Bridgeport, Connecticut. He was vice president and treasurer of the family corporation, licensed general construction. My mother was a home wife, homemaker. She had a 3rd son. She died June 6, 1953, not quite 32 years old, and she was murdered by my father. So I come from a badly broken family. He lived for alcohol, tobacco, and gambling. He was a diagnosed sociopath, borderline psychopath. I grew up as old as the 5 children, so I have not chosen to live that way. I saw, as I got older, the negative example. No one said anything about the psychopath. He had to be drunk every day, smoke more than 2 packs of filter cameras, cigarettes in a house and a car every restaurant we went to. So I have chronic bronchitis, take medicine twice a day, and he gambled away a family fortune. And now and then we would get, middle class family. There was always food, clothing, maintenance, shelter, because no one told us we were poor. But after mother died, my father did not take care of us. Our wealthy relatives would intervene and came wards of the state of Connecticut. The youngest brother, since 5 years old, family, we see him Christmas and birthday. Middle brother's at Woodfield Village, a home for disturbed boys near Bridgeport. I'm the oldest family. I was sent to live with a black family, public housing, North End, Bridgeport, Connecticut, and we got along just fine for several months. Then I was sent to another family because the 5 years of the war to the state of Connecticut, you never saw a social worker, outreach worker, got evaluated. I was born not disabled, different. My right leg short on the left leg, not as bad as it used to be. Bell's palsy, the muscles on the right side of my face never formed properly. So calling cadence was not easy. And I'm very high functioning Asperger's syndrome adult, as defined many years later, but high functioning. So growing up different, some people can't accept that. Well, I've always had a work ethic. I still do, even though at my age, no one wants to hire me in upstate New York. I'm a licensed armed guard, but I will be looking for work, but I will probably leave New York State. It's getting too expensive to live there. We were there 58, 61, as my father was a very drunk school teacher until he lost his job. And I became an Eagle Boy Scout before the environmentalists existed. I'm working in the Adirondacks, controlling erosion as a scout, tearing apart an abandoned lumber camp that was still out there in the woods, and in general keeping the trails open at Woodward Scout Camp. I mean, what do you want from a 13-year-old? So we go to different high schools. And when I was a junior in high school in Wells, New York, the Hamilton County, poorest county in New York State, 99% white, 1% Abenaki Indian. You couldn't vote at age 18 and the only minority was Abenaki Indians. So when people talk about white power structures, by default, only one minority, the Indians. Well, I would have voted for them because we were told we were related, but I had my DNA test. We're not related to American Indians. So unlike Betty Warren, I can't tell a story. We're all WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And, well, go to high school. I was a high school junior. And my father was teaching 1 year in Wells, New York. He said, Bobby, you can help me with homework. Sure, Dad. I did his papers for 3 classes as a high school junior. But I never wanted to teach school. I mean, the kids didn't want to learn in the 1950s, but they had to. There were no social promotions. So anyway, I won a Regents Scholarship from the state of New York a week before I was going to the Marine Corps Stash E program in April '63. I could, at age 18, sign papers. That would have been the first week of April. The Stash E program would give you 90 days longevity. April to May to June to July. 90 days I could be working in Wells. My high school had 22 students in it. And make some money. But with that Regents Scholarship, I got into college. And I went to Adirondack Community College for 2 years. Finished, go to Plattsburgh, New York. And then in January '66, I went into platoon leaders class program. And 6 weeks at Camp Upshur, first increment in beautiful Quonset huts from World War II next to smelly cow country. And in your 6 weeks of training, you're inculcated with positive values from Marine Corps point of view. Study at night had to go to the head, which for all civilians, that's the restroom, the bathroom. If you're Air Force, is a salle de bain. And study in the light. But then go back to the rack, because you're up at 0 dark 30, get your PT gear on, go out in the grass, on your back, run, 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 run. Push ups, on, two, I can't hear you. Then break starch, you're putting on your uniform, your utility uniform. Go out, fail inspection to 0900. Go back in, clean up, like the buckle, need a brasso to clean off the green crud. And then you get to, you get your breakfast. And then we get on the cattle car and go to the Marine Corps Exchange. It closed at 12 noon on Saturday. You got 15 minutes shopping. You get gee-dunk, pogey bait, candy. And you go back to the barracks. Classroom, then out marching, or really a forced hike for screening purposes. Shoot M14s and qualify. Then come back to Chappaquiddick Annex, second increment, summer of '67, main side. Fire to 45 and M16. Start with 42 candidates, graduate 23 at the end of the train. Go the hill trail and the power line trail. The hill trail, the lieutenant have run up, walk down, run up, walk down. So with 42 candidates, 7 was finished. So I was one of the 7. And I pushed one candidate all the way. But you're told, be physically fit when you report for training. They did locker box drills while we went and took a shower, of course, changing the utility uniform for classroom work. And that was the second increment. Then fall out September, graduate, had to wear short sleeve shirts when it was nice and cold. But graduate, then come back, finish college, get commissioned in January '68. I wore my Class A blues, dress blues, 2 days on campus, a conservative campus, Plattsburgh, New York. And after graduating, and the little red light's on, and so I got 30 days orders to go first week of March '68 to the basic school. So I earned a private pilot's license, graduated from college, got a private pilot's license, commissioned officer, second lieutenant, Marine Corps Reserve. Wear my dress blues, 2 days on campus, a conservative. Saw my first U-2 plane flying into Plattsburgh Air Force Base. Big fat cigar fuselage, glider wings, different sounding engine from the other jet engines I heard. Since I wanted to fly aircraft since I was 4 years old. So go to the basic school, work every other Saturday, because they want us to get on active duty. Graduate in August 9-68. My dream sheet was armor, and then Westpac tour. You didn't say Vietnam, Westpac tour. So I went to track vehicle school for 6 weeks, grand school at the Pink Palace. People tell me it's Del Mar. Okay. I was off base in local housing, civilian housing. I tried surfing in Oceanside. I couldn't even sit on the board. But I went to San Diego Zoo to see the animals, the Embarcadero, to see the Star of India. The first steel ship had a steel hull. Couldn't get insurance. People thought it would get struck by lightning and blow up. So graduate from track vehicle school, go to I-Corps Vietnam, 22nd October 68 to 14 November 1969. But get in Da Nang, the lights were still on at Signal Hill, or Freedom Hill. Freedom Hill, look at all the bomb craters, and get off the plane, get my gear, get up to Dong Ha. Now, the North Vietnamese weren't shelling it that day, but the airplane got off. We had to get our gear and get off and get in there below ground level and wait for the next vehicle to take us down to Quang Tri Combat Base. Get my gear to Quang Tri, drew an M16, and because Major General Raymond Davis of the 3rd Marine Division had a policy, all officers with a basic MOS, and mine was 1801, basic armor officer, had to serve the first part of their tour with grunts. So I was sent to Hotel Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marine Regiment of the 1st Marine Division, minus reinforced, as a weapons platoon commander. 3 M60 machine guns, 3 60mm mortars, 1 3.5-inch rocket launcher with white phosphorus rockets to mark targets. So go by Jeep out to Vandergrift Combat Base, take a helicopter out to Alpine Fire Support Base out near the border of Laos, and get to meet my personnel that I'm supposed to be in charge of, and even now and then run patrols out of in the elephant grass. It was always over our head. So you walked in the water and it was cold.
Well, I want to ask about coming in as a new...
Second lieutenant.
Yes, you're brand new in country. I'm sure a lot of those guys have been there for a long time. Tell me about being the new guy, but even more specifically, being a new officer.
Well, people would know that, but that's why I go out and see all the personnel I'm supposed to be in charge of. The mortar section, machine guns, the rocket launcher, and I always carried extra C4 explosives and mostly extra mortar ammunition. Since you got C rations, the blue heat tab called compressed trioxane, the fumes are terrible. And when the grunts used that to clear out a bunker or A-frame, you light it and throw it in. And if you did cook your food, you use C4 because it won't explode without a detonator. But that's what grunts. We were out in the field. After Alpine Fire Support Base, go back to Vandergrift, go out and cross the river, Ben Hai River. No, it's Ben Hai. It was Quang Tri River, to a pile of limestone known as the Witch's Tit. And we're out there ambush at night, tiger tracks, but we never saw a tiger. And then come back, go up over Signal Hill, head out towards Mystery Mountain, which had a waterfall coming out of the middle of it. Walk past the cobras. One was brown, one was sort of gray. Keep going. And then after the air support cleared out a tree line, we set up, and one of the enlisted personnel cut a snake in half. He says, "Lieutenant, what kind of snake is this?" It's a bamboo viper. Where's the head? Because they don't die quickly. It's very poisonous. We got to bury the head. Stomp the ground. Snakes are deaf, but they feel vibrations. So we all go stomp, stomp, stomp. And night, I had an M16 for a while and cut an L-shaped hole for myself. And that M16 was on the sling. I was holding it at night just in case we get hit. I don't have to worry about where the M16 is. So then later I had to turn it in for my 45 because T-08 firearm for an officer was a model 1911A1. So in hot pursuit, we were using North Vietnamese trails. They had living camouflage, hiding their trail stuff. They cut their logs into like no more than 12 inches high steps up the hills. And when Fox 2-4 got into a fight with several hundred NVA, they called for support from us. So we went up on right on the demilitarized zone, go north of the rock pile, Helicopter Valley, Foxtrot Ridge and fought the regular NVA. They thought they could overrun us. They failed. So after the firefight, we take care of our casualties. And we headed out towards the border with Laos, and we were out of range of supporting arms. So the only thing left for the company commander were my 60mm mortars. But we were in hot pursuit. You never spent more than one night in one position, because after we left and moved a quarter mile or so, they would mortar the position we just left, because they're always watching. And because of Tet 68, they lost so many personnel, they did their best to avoid full contact, but we still would catch them, they'd die. General Westmoreland wanted the body count to so they prove we were winning. No, not at all. But we kept moving, and then we came back, and we ended up going to Quaviet, which is the mouth of the river between the Benhai and the Quaviet River. We're there on the coast. And then after December 31st, I'm sent from grunts to armor. It was Vindai the Rock Crusher, Bravo Company. I had a 2nd Platoon Bravo Company, 3rd Battalion tanks. I was supposed to be on paper, I had 5 M40A3s. I had once had 3. But usually just 2 and sometimes just 1 tank working. But we would cover the road heading west. And one night we got up on a hillside to just past Camel Resettlement Village, north side of the road. 2 tanks. I'm out talking to the 2nd tank through what we're doing, where the grunts are in case we open fire down the hill. And I could hear the NVA tube, 2 rounds to their 60mm mortar. And I knew they were going to drop on our position, run like hell to get to my tank. Wham, 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 wham. They send the rounds to the hill. I took a little hole in my arm. I took care of that. So get a canister round, grunts are here, boom, downhill, no assault. They died at the bottom of the hill. But also, now the more long-range mortar opened fire on us, probably at least an 82, NVA 82 mortars. The increments don't always burn up in the tube, and it looks like sparks coming out. So I saw that, coincidence range from the heat round, flat trajectory for a good distance, fired. The grunt said I got a secondary explosion, direct hit on their position. So after that, no more contact that night. The next day, we're down from that position. And I was sent up Route 558 to Camel Resettlement Village on the back road to go to Camp Carroll. But we were at this triangular shaped position which the Army was actually running. And there was a boy wonder captain in there, I think his 2nd tour. And he was out to prove himself at our expense. I pulled one of my tanks into position, which hadn't been bulldozed, and a torsion bar broke. And we were supposed to run patrols out of the position in the morning, just after sunrise. Get up, get out with 2 tanks. The NVA could have mined the road. They didn't, because this village was a rest area for North Vietnamese troops. Because one day we were out on patrol, we killed 3 of them. They're so stupid. They opened fire with small arms, the tanks, canister round, cut the guy in half. Only his bottom half existed. Another one tried to run away. Beehive round hit him. He had all the beehive spikes sticking out of his head like a bad horror movie. Sniper in the tree line. Couldn't hit him with the machine guns. Beehive round, no more sniper. But we brought back 3 bodies, left them out in front of our position before you entered the triangular camp. And the families retook them, buried them. I guess they were local people. So anyway, after a few weeks with Boy Wonder, we came back to our position. In January, February, March, half of April 1969, I was with armor. The 3rd Marine Division couldn't figure out what to do with all these tanks weighing fully loaded, extra loads, 50 tons. Had a hard time going through a rice paddy. You got a 2-speed automatic transmission. You got to be ready going. Otherwise, you're going to sink. Has an ocean view, 200 meters from the Gulf of Tonkin, 600 meters from the militarized zone, with Tipsy 5 radar and naval gunfire support. And one day, we're eating food outside the tank, and here's a splash of sand. The NVA, you never heard the shot because the wind is blowing too hard off the ocean. They fired a genuine World War II anti-tank rifle that the Russians had. It was 14.8 millimeter. I still have it at home. And watch that, okay. Tipsy 5 never picked it up. They could scan back and forth or send up a fence. And it would go blip as soon as somebody crossed it. So after that, 3rd Marine got rid of armor. I was sent to Base Defense Base Coordinator's office. We ran patrols every day. And the area had been sprayed by Air America, defoliants. They never told us, wait until it's dry. So myself and other grunts, we got, the defoliant on our uniforms and ourselves. So I have diabetes from that, and I've had it for 20 years.
And you said it was a combination of Agent Orange and then Agent Blue?
There are different defoliants. Defoliants used in different areas, depending on what plants had to be destroyed. And I understand the defoliants make the plant grow too fast and it would burst and die. So there's a difference in the delta, which is wet, than us, which wasn't too wet because we were a little elevation at Dong Ha. But plant H&I fires, that's harassment, interdiction, artillery fire. Coordinate, because you shoot within 1,000 meters of someone else's tactical area of operation, you need permission, because who knows that a night ambush might be out there. And base coordinators often you assign Vietnamese workers to different units. They would clean out the head. In civilian world, that's the outhouse. and inspect. There were 2 shops allowed at Dong Ha run by Mr. Kui, who was approved by the government for selling things. So we go check, okay, order price, all right. And we had military pay certificates. Now, since I was an officer, someone gets a birthday card or Christmas card with money in it, they had to turn it in for military pay certificate, and I'd give them a receipt for it. And mail, I had to improve the mail they're sending home. And some Marines were doing illegal drugs, like marijuana cigarettes in little plastic containers, clear plastic. I opened one up, took a sniff, ooh, marijuana. Now, after the 3rd Marine Division was getting ready to leave Dong Ha, the Army had it. Now, since I opened it up, that's considered contamination. But it's okay, you get rid of it. And then some non-genius lifer, lousy, ineffectual follow-up expecting retirement, told us we have to replace all the sandbags that have rips and holes in them. And my major that I was working for said, we're not going to do it. What we do is we take sandbags, the new sandbags, plastic ones, which will last a few weeks, and cover up all the holes and part. Because personnel were leaving, and I was qualified and recommended for 0805, which is Airborne Artillery Reserve. So I was told to cancel my 6-month extension and go back to Camp Lejeune, Cajun pronunciation, general's name, and go to school at Marine Corps Air Station, New River, North Carolina for 0805. I took and passed the aviation aptitude test. I already had a commercial pilot's license, a couple hundred hours flying time in a civilian airplane, and a T-34, which was surplus from the Air Force. Marine Corps Navy still had a T-34. So I passed the swim test, the aviation aptitude test. You're the first alternate. You're the second alternate. That went on for over 6 months. Finally, it's getting out December. I'm standing inspection of Class A uniform. Some Marine Corps pay grade 06 bird colonels and some of my unit pull. So says to me, are you a regular? No, sir, reservist. So in front of me, he erases my evaluation and downgrades it from acceptable to acceptable discrepancies and says, get that uniform fixed, Lieutenant. Yes, sir. I never wore it again. So I know I was being put out. But I did my job. Officer of the day, 2 days in a row, working at night. Marines wouldn't wear their hat properly. Put that hat on. Yes, sir. And there's a black Marine, and it is wet cold. He said, where's your jacket? Oh, sir, I'm leaving. They took it away. Okay, I'm the supply officer. You're going to get a new jacket. There's a red ball jacket, or pick the best one. No, you just turn it in when you leave. You don't sign for it. So in other words, I took care of the personnel. That officer is supposed to do that. You're supposed to inspire, help, inform subordinates what's going on and take care of them. Because the 2nd Marine Division was losing thousands of dollars of garrison property. Almost anything that wasn't being welded down was being stolen. So I had 2 years, 11 months, 3 weeks active duty, and the Marine Corps got rid of me. A couple of years later, I went in the Navy as a student naval flight officer, but I failed the flight physical the 3rd time. So I was put out with 7 years, 9 months, 10 days total service, December 10th, 1975. So if the Marine Corps got rid of me, I could see no future whatsoever. So I went in the National Guard after being put out of the Navy. But I stayed enlisted because they can't get you out of the unit. You can't be sent someplace else. And I was a heavy equipment operator for. So with that National Guard unit, the nearest job I could find was 54 miles away in Alabama, working in the world's largest pipe-laying barge, the Esso AB-1, which is supposed to go to the Netherlands. And the project's finished. We're all laid off. The next job's 100 miles away from Pensacola. So I moved to Mississippi, worked 4 years, 11 months for Ingalls Shipbuilding and Spruance-class destroyers, Kidd-class, CG-47 Ticonderoga, the Aegis system, radar, and LHA-5, landing platform helicopter assault. And I got my associate's degree in data processing, learned to program basic COBOL, RPG, Fortran, and data files in COBOL. I'm looking for work, and I worked with a black guy as a scaffold carpenter on my first job there. He says, you ever get the idea you'll never get promoted because they consider you a damn Yankee? Yes, I was told as a damn Yankee in Mississippi. And maybe that's why it's one of the most backward states of the Union. You know, to be treated as an outsider. Who are you? You ain't one of us. Yeah, that's true. Go to church, a white-only church for 3 times. That's it, I'm done. Christianity was never a white man's religion. It was dark-skinned Jewish people known as Semites. And Jesus was crucified king of the Jews, not king of the Christians. So I went to several churches, get done in Mississippi, come back to Virginia for a couple weeks, I was still in the Air Guard, 255th Combat Communications Squadron. We actually fired M16 to qualify, and I did. Somebody found a case of ammo. So I was there in the Air Guard in Mississippi, doing what work they give me. Then after a few months, that's it. I'm back to New York State in National Guard and Army Reserve. Then Bill Clinton got rid of reservists. If you're 20 years or more, you're out. Then I went to New York Guard, the governor's authorized militia, which is a volunteer force. I was a company commander out in Utica, New York. And then after the support was minimal, I got 25 years service. That's it, I'm done.
I want to take it back to Vietnam. I got some questions about your time over there. Could you tell me about some of the men you served with in the tank company in Vietnam?
Well, with tanks, we're supposed to have a 4-man crew because out on patrol, you do an out-of-halt check when no one's shooting at you. I had a support roller fall off one day. I'm standing up, vehicle commander's hatch. I see the support roller. Stop! Get out, grab it, because we only have a 3-man crew. Driver, loader, and me. We're supposed to have 4. We only had 3. So.
Well, what's the 4th person supposed to do?
He would be the gunner. Now, the vehicle commander has override. He could take the position of gunner. But we're on a combat patrol. I turn around. One of the enlisted men is sucking on a beer, Tiger brand beer, Tiger piss. He's sucking on it. Hey, we're on a combat patrol. No alcohol. Yeah. Well, he's the chain of command. Told the sergeant, our first sergeant, this guy is no good. He got to be replaced. He speaks to him, and he told me he's a little punk, but he's Hispanic. He demanded to me, he said, I demand request mass with the commanding of the 3rd Marine Division. He can't be denied. Company commander says, can't you take care of this, Lieutenant? He says, sir, he cannot be denied. Here, request mast. So he got his request mast. He's put in a mess hall inside the perimeter of Dong Ha, and he got replaced. But like I said, January, February, March, half of April, we operated, and the 3rd Marine Division decided they don't need armor anymore. So I became surplus, even though I was an 1802 basic armor officer. So run patrols out of Dong Ha Combat Base.
Now, do you remember any of your NCOs? Do any of the NCOs stand out for you?
I was supposed to have a platoon sergeant. He went home on emergency leave. Evidently, he's going to divorce his wife and marry a 17-year-old, as they said. Really? So I don't have a platoon sergeant. So it's me and the enlisted personnel. I tell them, this is what we're doing. We're going to do blah, 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 blah. Yeah, yeah. And that's the way it went. You even ran, when Vindai, the rock crusher, U.S. Navy, is taking bullets, probably from upset Arvins and Rough Puss, rural forces. We got out doing grunt work. I've got the M79 Baloop grenade launcher, 40 millimeter grenade launcher in my 45. And we get online and we're advancing towards people who are shooting at the Navy. So put it around it, fire it. It lands short, of course, but they get the idea, we're closing. And I got the left flank, and I'm watching these buildings that were destroyed in the past. Because one night across the river, there was we didn't know at the time, there was envy on a loudspeaker talking to the civilians, you know, trying to get them to convert to communism, what have you, or that we were the enemy, the destroyers. And nobody knew Vietnamese at the time. The next day we were told by intelligence personnel, they were out there. Oh, really? Well, one night I was out there with 2 tanks just before the bridge. That's a fording zone. The tracked vehicles couldn't use the bridge, only wheeled vehicles. So we're on the south side of the river, which the name changes in the village. So it was the Quang Tri River, became the Qua Viet going out to the Gulf of Tonkin. So we're being shot at, small arms. How do I get back across that bridge? Light a cigarette, do the Groucho Marx walk across the bridge, get my tank, check. Okay, fire our coax over the heads, watch the tracer bullets back and forth, look at the, the villagers, they hit their huts, don't hit their huts. Work through the brushes and the tree lines, watch the ricochets. And the 50 caliber, when it worked, it's marked on it's on the side. You have 50 rounds at the most if it didn't jam. We rarely got to use it because it just was almost useless. Our battalion commander wouldn't let us do a sky mount. That's a regular mount, like you see on the old Sherman tank or other units had. So the NVR is gone, no body count. They're dead. The villagers are okay. But it was interesting because there wasn't a replacement for the tanks. The Marine Corps the U.S. government couldn't copy either the Russian PT-76 or the Chi-Com PT-85. The 76 is like a little more than 3-inch main gun. The 85 is more than 3 inches, since ours was 90. But they're amphibious. The Marine Corps didn't want an amphibious tank. So that's the way it went back then.
Now, you mentioned the beehive rounds. Tell me about the other sort of rounds you had access to in the tank.
That close range and brush, the canister round were like little beer cans. They're about that big, and they would clear the brush out, and any human being there, they rip up the soil and make a huge cloud. We're only good for a certain distance. That's why the beehive round, you have coincidence rangefinders make it the image to coincide. You have to index your round, heat round, high explosives. And I don't know if the beehive was separate, but you press the detente, turn it to the range you want, load it, yell on the way, boom, it goes out. Watch your tracer element. When it opens up clockwise, the beehive little aluminum projectiles are coming out to spear anything out there. Any part of an NVA in a tree line is going to get hit. He's not going to survive very well. when I saw on a beautiful blue sky day my one tank guarding the road to Neuilly Cantien, south of the washout, which tracked people to go down to the hill, at least 30 NVA and a beautiful blue sky day, no air power, no naval gunfire support. Index, the coincidence range-finders, little beehive, call my company. At least 30 NVA with huge packs. Boom, open fire, company crazy. You didn't have a clearance for the Arvins. There weren't any Arvins out there. You have a clearance. Well, but the enemy, if the Arvins gave us permission, they'd be gone. They would disappear into one of the villages where we couldn't shoot at them. They'd come out at night to do all their dirty work. Now, they captured some of them, or they came Chuhois, really surrendered. They had these packs, like a giant sweater with 2 anti-vehicle mines front, 2 in the back. And they take it off and put the anti-vehicle mines out there for us to run over. So they did run over a mine in January 69.
What happened?
I was standing, well, we were going to, had 2 tanks to do perimeter security for U.S. Army roam plows. And we're moving down, I'm in the lead, because time you get a frag order, and I'm the only one with the order, follow me. Left, right, running through the trees, hit the mine on the left side, boom, the front end goes up. I'm standing up in the vehicle commander's hatch, had internal bleeding, like an inch or two from a bicycle, all nice and blue. I got hit in the head because your combat vehicle crewman's helmet didn't cover the forehead. It's wide open. So I got hit in the head with an ammo box, carry a hand grenade for spider holes, because the NVA would stand up and open fire, full auto. Never heard single shot, full auto. Green tracers. So we get out. Compensating idler went off in the brush and never found it. 3 road wheels are totally destroyed. Portion bars in front end, they're gone. Over 300 gallons of diesel fuel ran out through the hull, into the big dark spot. And so our battalion commander did come out, looking at me. Well, what do you want? We never knew it was there. So the tank gets taken back. And 1 tank left goes out, and supposedly another tank would be in support. You need 2 tanks. You should never send 1 out, but we went out sometimes 1 at a time. I went back with the tank, and it goes in for repair, probably Dong Ha. And I managed to get a ride out to our position next to Vindai. And I spent a day or 2 in there, but I never went to get checked out for any injuries.
How'd your head feel? I can't imagine that was the worst headache you've ever had.
Well, after a while it healed, and went back to work. But the tank was repaired, but the coincident rangefinder never worked. So it's like tracer bullets on a target. Depending on the range, you could fire higher explosive high enough. You watch the tracer element, and then boom, where to hit. And we had at least 64 rounds, 3 heat rounds, several white phosphorus, beehive, canister, and about 2,000 rounds for the 30 caliber Toax, and 500 rounds for the 50, and M3 grease gun, several hundred rounds for your stick magazine, 20 round stick magazine for the grease gun. You fire, you have to hold them down. Muzzle climb. Most machine guns have muzzle climb. The M60 didn't, but the grease gun did. The company commander had a Thompson, which he would use now and then.
And you were saying you had a 45 yourself?
Handgun, yeah. I did find a box of probably World War II tracers for the 45. They'd be issued to crews flying in the Pacific Ocean. You go down, you're in your little rubber dinghy life raft, you fire the 45 straight up, the bullet goes up. Dumbo, PB4Y Catalina will find you, rescue you, take you back. But I fired them off. The bullet goes out, then it drops. But as a 230 grain bullet in a 45, it replaced the 38 caliber Colt long, about that long, because I have one at home, revolver, that was used in the Philippines. 6 bullets in the chest of a Moro running amok because of the drugs wouldn't stop them dead. But a 45 would. It has knockdown power, banked.
I had a gentleman telling me that they were pretty inaccurate. They're a little loose.
Well, at close range, it's a close range firearm since you have open sights. But you qualify because you have a 6 o'clock sight picture. Breathe, exhale, boom. And never break your wrist. You see a Gray Z cowboy movie, bang, bang. No, you don't break your wrist. You let the arm absorb the recoil. The 45. Corpsmen's carried 45 as well. When we got in a big firefight with NVA, one of the corpsmen took, it looked like a 50 caliber bullet, and the hand grip was 45. Without that 45, it would have gone through his hip, and he would have died real quickly.
Wow. Now, while you're out in the field, you ever run across any wildlife, tigers, snakes, anything like that?
We saw tracks of tigers, but never ran into them. When I left Alpine Fire Sport Base, see, you have in daytime you get an observation post. At nighttime, it's close in as a listening post. And there are 2 men. The tiger came and grabbed one of them before the other one could react and carried him off and killed him. So the Marine Corps hired a qualified Vietnamese tiger hunter. Went out and they killed that tiger. Now some other people, one shot from an M16 killed the tiger. That was the Army. I believe Army personnel. But north of the rock pile at night, rock apes would come up to our perimeter, look like hairy human beings. They go, uh-oh, uh-oh. And if you ever threw any at them, they'd find it and throw it back. You'd never throw a grenade at a rock ape. They'll find it and throw it back. And they got angry, they run and they jump over to any barbed wire you had, or they run through your position. You just stay out of their way. The Army roam plows did kill one antelope. Bang. They had M14s, the Army engineers. And I got a quill from a giant porcupine. It was that big. You see storks flying away. Seems the animals were very big. They're very big. And of course there were rats, any fixed position rats, because some people would foolishly feed them. And you could hear them running around. Right.
Big little guys too, yeah?
What's that?
They were big little rats too, yeah?
Well, you only saw big rats. The little rats were, of course, usually protected unless some other rat found them and eat their own kind.
Wow.
But in general, when the shooting started, the birds were quiet and they'd be gone. But did I tell you about the worthless bombing haul?
No, you didn't.
October 31st, 1968, Lyndon Baines Johnson forced a bombing halt on the military in the South Vietnam. So the North Vietnamese turned the lights on their trucks, bumper to bumper, all night long. They're disappearing almost to the waterline on the East Coast, disappearing through the other half of the demilitarized zone. All the paraphernalia for war to invade South Vietnam was being stored there. We couldn't touch them, could not shoot at them, because the civilians wouldn't allow the U.S. military to fight to win. Laos was allegedly off limits, but my brother was a helicopter crew chief after I left Vietnam. He was Army, and they would fly into Laos at maximum range, drop off either CIA operatives, Studies and Observation Group, SOG, and come back to Da Nang on fumes. And when the peace offensive happened, I think it's 1972, he flew up to Con Thien, where there was a U.S. Army listening and communications group to get him out. He said South Vietnamese wouldn't fire on them, so he fired back because his door gun was a 50 caliber. and he wiped them out. He was threatened with court-martial action, and he wasn't court-martialed.
You said that was during the Easter Offensive?
Yes, it was the Easter Offensive when the NVA came across the demilitarized zone in strength. And we bombed them, but our air forces, our ground forces were almost all gone. There were advisors still there. The ARVN in general were worth almost nothing. You saw the pictures when they threw away their military gear and they ran into Da Nang. The whole road is lined with abandoned military equipment. Now, Vietnamese Rangers, Vietnamese Marines, the special forces would fight. The rough puffs, the rural forces, local people, almost useless. Now, the Marine Corps had combined action platoons capped in various villages. They were successful. But of course, they were withdrawn, and the NVA conquered South Vietnam.
Well, tell me about coming home from Vietnam. What was your experience like getting back to the world?
Just great indifference. No one spit on me. My family never asked me what I did. My father only spoke of his friends. Again, he treated us as strangers our entire lives. And I never talked to him about it. So my stepmother said one time we lost the war, and I said, we won every military confrontation, including 68, but the politicians lost the peace, the sellout of South Vietnam. The domino theory prevailed, that Laos was commie, Cambodia, Kampuchea was commie. By the way, I looked at a towel in the hotel room, made in Cambodia. Not Kampuchea, Cambodia. But that's a different language, the Khmer civilization, which once occupied part of South Vietnam. The Khmer, the ones who were Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom. Up Tonle Sap, the name of the river, Mekong River. Tonle Sap is where they're located. And Laos has the Plain of Jars, which no one has investigated archaeology-wise. But it's still, in other words, they figured out if commie China can profit from capitalism, so can they. But you got the typical old commie leaders, or really dictators, dictating policy to other people. And of course, you understand, even though, like, we see the failure of communism or state socialism, or progressivism in Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea. It's a failure. But our pseudo-intellectual with college degrees think they can be in charge while being elected to public office. Even a corrupt politician has to answer after a while. Think of Bill Clinton.
Don't get me started. We might be here all day.
Yeah, well, I'm a registered Democrat because in New York State, I can vote in Democrat primary, so I voted against Hillary the Wise twice. When she ran for public office, then in the general election. She still got elected, but did nothing for us. Just power-hungry failures.
Oh, yeah. Well, a couple questions to wrap us up today. What do you want people to remember about Vietnam based on your experiences?
We fought to win an honest war. There were no atrocities in northernmost Dakar when I was there between 22nd October 68, 14 November 1969. In fact, when we got fired on by Vietnamese, when I worked for Base Defense, Base Coordinator's Office, we get a phone call from 1st Perimeter. Hey, we're being shot at. All right, we'll send out the reaction force. Send them out and shoot to kill whoever's shooting at you. And of course, if it was like the ARVNs, they would quickly retreat, because we never tried to use the body count to say we're winning.
Now, is there any song, if you heard it today, would take you back to your days in Vietnam?
Barry, what's his name, On the Eve of Destruction.
Is there a moment in time that you heard that song?
I think of the Vietnam War and how wrong it was. I mean, I wouldn't join a peace demonstration under any circumstances because I saw as what now. That was a totally negative influence for the dictators, the decision makers in North Vietnam. They say the United States people won't support the war, and all these huge demonstrations would only encourage them to maintain the war. The only time communists would negotiate is when they think they're losing. The same with North Korea. That war was an armistice in 1953, after July 25th, 1953. I watched it as a 5-year-old on television when it first broke out in 1950. That's when communists or other dictatorships negotiate peace in our time. Same thing. No one who talks about the war in the Ukraine, it says it's exactly what Adolf Hitler did in the 1930s with when sending troops, I believe it in the Rhineland, which went to France after the Great War, World War I, with the Germans' orders. If the French resist, leave immediately or withdraw immediately. They didn't. The French sat behind their incomplete Maginot Line, thinking they were safe. In 1938, March, the Sudetenland crisis, Munich crisis, when Hitler claimed Germans in the Sudetenland, Czechoslovakia, were being harassed. Right. It's the same thing that Putin has done in the Ukraine in claiming that Russian citizens were being harassed in Donetsk region. So that was the excuse to invade and take back the Crimea in 2014. This is the aggression of a dictator against what Khrushchev gave the Ukraine. And for the world to ignore, to defeat Putin, is to encourage other dictatorships like China to go into Taiwan or North Korea to try and intimidate South Korea with threats of nukes. They now have nuclear weapons in North Korea. The dictator who has life and death decision against all his citizens, just like his sister, to destroy any potential rivals. They're a tool used by Communist China. And that's why communists trying to dominate the South China Sea, keep the Philippines out, sinking Vietnamese fishing boats, and otherwise intimidating people that they can turn, like Italy won a Mare Nostrum under the Mediterranean Sea under Mussolini, the fascist, Hitler, the socialist, and China wants to control the South China Sea. And no, aggression. And what does the United Nations do? Churn out paperwork. You shouldn't do this, China. I try and buy things not made in China, but that is very difficult. Since various businesses have sold out our jobs here in the United States at cheap labor, slave labor, the Uyghurs, the Muslims in China are now locked up. But Muslim countries sell petroleum, Saudi Arabia, others, and they're not intervening for the Uyghurs. So it's like Muslims maintain antipathy towards other Muslims who aren't exactly like themselves. Shiite versus Sunni versus Alawites versus the whirling dervishes, we British call the Sunnis, or not Sunnis, the Sufis. Then the Muslims don't necessarily get along with other Muslims.
Lastly, do you have any final thoughts or words of advice to anybody who's watching this in the future?
Everybody I know who served in Vietnam served with honor, no atrocities, helped the civilians as much as possible by being prepared to fight a war, and come back to the United States, serve honorably in the Marine Corps until they got rid of me. I flew little airplanes up to about 4 years ago. I lost my medical certificate because I had 3 mini strokes over the years. And I've recovered. But that's why I eat meat no more than twice a month, because the little pieces of meat in here, carotid artery broke off and caused the mini strokes. First time walking, what's called slap foot. The foot doesn't come there, it's slap. The second and third time my thumb and forefinger didn't work, I did my exercises. Bench press, 130 pounds, biceps, triceps, latissimus dorsi muscles, walk on a treadmill for 15 minutes at least. They wouldn't cooperate with my combination lock. So I drove to Ellis Hospital, did an MRI. You had another stroke, really? So I'm there. They stick a needle under here for diabetes, and they got my medical records. What? So all of a sudden, I take now Januvia and Phoroxia for diabetes once a day, Eliquis for my heart twice a day, and survive doing my exercises and walking now and then. Never abusing any drugs, including prescription medicine. I expect to live a long time and really bother people.
Well, Bob, you haven't been a bother to me today. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be able to hear your stories. Thanks for taking the time to share them. But
I'm glad.
most importantly, welcome home and thanks for your service, Bob.
Thank you.